What's up y'all, it's Heat and I'm back with another tutorial video. If you watched my previous tutorial, I said I was going to be doing things like sneaker reviews, sneaker unboxings, and things like that. Well, I started doing that and realized it's bad to mix content on this channel. So instead, I created a brand new channel for that. I haven't uploaded to it yet, but if you want to check out that channel and any other channels I have, I'll put them in the description box below. For today's video, I wanted to give you guys 5 mix tips for better sounding beats. The digital audio workstation I'll be working in is FL Studio 12, but every technique except for the last one can be done in any other digital audio workstation. So without further ado, let's get into it. For tip number 1, I want to go over using reference mixes. As you can see here, I have a reference mix loaded up. This is actually not a reference mix, well it could be, but this has nothing to do with the beat that you see above here. And I just put this in here so I can show you what it looks like when you drop one in. Now, what you want to do is have your reference mix inside the session while you're mixing, and while you're mixing, compare your mix to the mix that you chose. When choosing a mix, for a reference track, what you want to do is choose a beat or a song that sounds similar to the one that you're mixing, and one with the mix that sounds really good to you. That way, when you're mixing, it has a similar vibe, and you can try to get the qualities out of the reference track into your track. And that way, you can improve your mixing. Most people just mix, or a lot of people that I know at least, they mix by ear and what they've been taught and what they know. But sometimes it does not compare to a professional mix. And sometimes even my own mixes don't. And using a reference track of a professional mix, or just a mix that you think is really high quality, you can mix your beat, and when you compare it, you can see how much it stands up to the mix that you think is a high quality. So if yours isn't the best, you can find ways to improve it to match the qualities in the reference track that you made, or you chose, I should say. And if you've never done this before, or if you have never heard of doing this before, I highly suggest you try this out. I don't do this too often, but I know I should, and I will start doing it more often with the next mixes I do. And on top of that, there's also plugins that help with using reference tracks and reference mixes, but I don't know the name of those off the top of my head, so you can Google that if you want to know that. But I highly suggest you try out using reference tracks and mixes in your sessions as you're mixing. I keep saying reference tracks and reference mixes, but they're the same thing, and I just highly suggest you try it out and see if it works for you. It's helped me out, and even though I don't do it a lot, I still highly recommend it. For tip number 2, I want to talk about mixing for small speakers. Nowadays, when people listen to music, we listen on earbuds, cell phone speakers, laptop speakers, and things like that. And when we're mixing, we want our mixes to sound good on multiple and almost every sound source available. And when it comes to small speakers, it's a lot harder. It's harder to get the bass to cut through and things like that. But what you can do is actually get those sound sources and play your mix on all of them and see what you need to improve on. You can get a laptop and play your mix through there, use earbuds and stuff like that. And if you don't want to go out and do all that, what I'll show you is a way that you can do it from the studio. This is a tip that I read from another engineer that I follow, and I don't use it too often, but it has helped me in the past, and I do want to try this out again and see if it'll help me more, because I've only used it a couple times, but hopefully it can help you and be useful for you. Now, what I have here in the session is just an old beat that I never uploaded, and it's the wave trackouts to it, and I'll go ahead and play it so you can hear what it sounds like with none of this technique added. So if you didn't notice, the beat is not mixed at all. So take note of that. And what you want to do now is on your master track, right here, this is my master track. What you want to do is add an EQ. And what I'm using is FabFilter Pro Q2, but you can use any EQ of your choice. Preferably, parametric EQ of some sort. And what I have set up now is a low cut filter at 6 dB at a frequency of 200 Hertz. Now, I'm going to play it so you can hear what it sounds like. Now, if you heard what I heard, basically a lot of low end is lost, and the 808 is losing a lot of its presence. And the thing that I would fix first is the 808, because immediately it's just drastically changing, and you can barely hear it compared to when I didn't add the EQ. Now, what this EQ is representing is basically laptop speakers. Now, I'm not sure if it's if this is 100% to laptops, because every laptop is different speakers, different kinds of speakers, stuff like that. But it's just a general idea of what it sounds like. So what you can also do besides this is keep the EQ on your master, make your master track mono. You can add a Waves S1 stereo imager. Just find a way to make your master track mono. So in FL Studio, you take this stereo separation knob, turn it all the way to the right, and it makes it mono. I'll go ahead and play it again so you can hear what it sounds like in mono. So as you can hear, or what I heard at least, was that even more low end and even some mid range and in general just a bunch of frequencies are not as present as they are with none of this on the master track. So what this represents now is if that same laptop was across the room from you, and also if your mix was being played on grocery store speakers. Now, like I said before, I don't know if this is 100% true to the actual sound sources they represent, but it's just a general, way to reference, and, you can see what you need to improve on. Like I said, I don't do this too often, but it's just a good technique to know, and hopefully it can help you out. For tip number 3, I want to go over premixing. With premixing, there's generally 2 things that you can do, and I highly recommend you do both of them. The first way is you do a quick mix while you're making the beat before you actually get to the full mix after the beat's complete. And the second thing with premixing is you should do a quick mix of each sound as you're choosing them. Now, when it comes to mixing, most people do a full mix when they're making the beat, which means, they do the full mix as the beat comes along. Or they do a quick mix as they're making the beat, and that's usually quick leveling, simple EQs, and stuff like that. Then they do a full mix when the beat's complete. Now, what I like to do is do a quick mix and then touch it up in the full mix after. But the problem I see is with premixing while you're choosing sounds. Not a lot of people do that. And I have a kick loaded up here, and I'll show you an example of why it's a big problem. So I'm going to go ahead and play this so you can hear what it sounds like. So with this kick, I like the texture that it has, but what I don't like is that it doesn't hit hard in the low end, and it's not thumpy at all. So if I'm choosing this as my sound, what I would do is, try to make it hit hard for the beat that I'm working on. So what I have here is just a simple EQ, and what I did was add to the low end and cut some of the highs. Now I'll play it so you can hear what it sounds like now. Okay, so I like how it sounds now. In my opinion, it sounds better, but the thing is, this may still not work for the beat. And if I wait until the full mix to do this and add the EQ at the full mix, I might add it and realize the sound is still not good enough. And that's annoying because, I have to re-choose the sound now. And the beat's supposed to be done already. I shouldn't have to touch any of the sounds. But since I waited so long, I have to re-choose it now. And this is why I recommend it's done beforehand, and not when you get to the full mix. So do your pre-mixing of each sound when you're choosing them, not at the full mix. Do not wait to see if your sound works or not. There's many other ways that you can, many other techniques you can use to get this to hit hard, but this is just one quick way. I made it hit harder, and this may or may not work. So if it doesn't work, I can choose a new sound, because I'm still choosing the sound. Now, generally, when you choose sounds, you want to choose the perfect sound that sits right without anything on it, 100% dry. Now, that's not always the case, so I highly recommend you do a premix when you're choosing sounds. For tip number 4, I want to go over mono for stereo low end. When I first started making beats and learning about mixing, I always read and heard that you should keep all your low end in mono. And I even watched tutorials where people would mix and then everything in the low end would be mono. But when it came to mastering, they even had plugins that kept their low end in mono. And for the longest time, I would follow that. But, after learning some more and, getting my own techniques, I realized not everything in the low end has to be mono. Sometimes it sounds better in mono, sometimes it sounds better in stereo. But there's certain things that I do keep in mono, like 808s and kicks. I try to keep those in mono when possible. Usually to me, every kick in 808 sounds better in mono, so I usually keep it in mono. And the reason why people recommend you keep your low end mono is because low end takes up a lot of space in the frequency range and eats up a lot of information. So if you keep it in stereo, it may eat into the stereo information and just take up a lot of headroom. So if you keep everything mono, it's just cleaner. But in my opinion, not everything has to be in mono. So I have a couple sounds here that I'm going to show you. But first, I have this bass, and I'll show you what it sounds like stereo and what it sounds like in mono and which one I think is better. So I'm playing stereo first. Now, with this bass, it sounds wide, it's present, and in my opinion, it sounds really good. Now, let me play it when it's in mono. Now, when it's in mono, in my opinion, I think it sounds deeper, but not deeper in a good way. And it loses a lot of its presence. And I don't like that. I like how it sounds in stereo. It's wider, it has more presence, and just sounds better all around to me. So for this bass, I would keep it in stereo. And back in the day, when I was learning about mixing, I would have kept this in mono, and it just would have been terrible. So, for some things, you need to just use your ear and choose what sounds better to you. Not everything has to be in mono for the low end. Just do whatever you think works better for you and what you like. Now, I also have this kick, and I'm going to show you what it sounds like after I play it. So let me make sure it's stereo first. Okay, now it's in stereo, so I'm going to go ahead and play it so you can hear what it sounds like. Okay, so in stereo, it's sort of wide, and I hear a lot of high end that's not needed. I can EQ that, but let me show you what it sounds like when it's in mono. So when it's in mono, in my opinion, it sounds way better. It's stumpier, it has less high end, and just sits better overall. So in this case, when it comes to this kick, I would put it in mono. And that's why I said before that I normally keep my kicks and 808s in mono, because it usually sounds better and sits better. And this is a prime example of that. But I just use this kick this kick and this bass to show you how some things don't need to be in mono and some things do need to be in mono when it comes to the low end. But at the end of the day, just do what you like and what sounds best to you. For tip number 5, I'm going to go over export settings. I'm not sure if these settings apply to any other digital audio workstation, but I'm in FL Studio 12 and the settings are in here. So what I've done is load an 808 and I've laid down 2 notes. I've purposely overlapped them and I'll play it so you can hear what it sounds like. So as you can hear, it sounds really bad and the notes are overlapping each other. Typically when notes are overlapping, what people tend to do is go over to the playlist, right click on the sound that's overlapping, and click cut itself. Now typically this fixes it, but not always. And I'll go ahead and play it to show you that it didn't fix anything. So as you can hear, it's not fixing anything, and what you would do now to fix it, to really fix it, you would go over to your channel settings and click on the wrench and go to the polyphony section. You would then change your max to 1. And what this does is changes the amount of keys that can be played at once. So if you hit 3 keys, only 1 note will be played. So since these notes are overlapping, 2 notes should technically be playing like they were before. But since we fixed it, only 1 note should be playing at a time. So I'll play it and you can hear what it sounds like. So as you can hear, it's fixed. Now, when this is done, most people think, oh, okay, I'm done, nothing else. But when it comes to the export settings, it can mess everything up. So I'll go ahead and go to the settings. I'm not actually going to export this because I've already exported it and loaded it into FL Studio. But as you can see here, there's a setting that says disable maximum polyphony. Now, what we just did to fix the 808s from overlapping is we went to the max polyphony settings and the channel settings, and we changed the max polyphony to 1. And it says disable maximum polyphony. So if you click this, you're basically disabling what we did. And if you disable it, it will overlap again. So I highly suggest that if this is checked in your settings, take it off and then export. Like I said, it's already loaded and exported, so I have it here. And I have 2 versions. I have one with the disable max polyphony setting on and one with disable max polyphony off. So I'm going to play the 808s with disable max polyphony on, and you will hear that the 808s are still overlapping. Now the 808s are still overlapping because you disabled the setting that fixed it in the export. Now I'll play the 808s with the disable max polyphony off. As you can hear, the 808s are fixed and it's no longer overlapping. So I'll play them both together for before and after. First we'll play the 808 with disable max polyphony on, and then 808s with disable max polyphony off. So here's how it sounds. I'll play it again just so you can hear it again. So as you can hear, the first 808s are still overlapping and the second ones are fixed. So one more time, if you're in your export settings and you see disable max polyphony and it's checked, I highly suggest that you turn it off, and you'll get 808s like this. It's fixed, it's not overlapping, and sounds fine. So I highly recommend you turn that setting off if you find it on. That was 5 mix tips for better sounding beats. This video was a lot longer than I expected it to be, so I hope you get something out of it. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and comment down below to tell me what you would like to see next. Subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for when I drop new beats and more tutorials. Also, hit the bell next to the subscribe button to be notified of when I do upload new content. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at HEATWAVS. That's HEATWAVS. Same as my YouTube channel name. I'm Heat, and I'm out. Peace.